So, anyways, I got asked by Daniel. I'll link up his channel below in the description, and because he teaches you how to yoga and to decrease pain and stress in your life, and uh, he is part of Hatha Yoga Zagreb, which is in Croatia. So most of the videos are in Croatian, but is a good and some are in English, but it's a good way to actually start off by doing simple yoga and learning about breathing to decrease the stress levels, uh, uh, the general stress levels, which is really funny because I'm gonna say stuff that kind of contradicts that, like, should put your body in less stress, because in order to increase um, cellular health, you actually have to put your body in a state of stress, and basically we're just gonna go through this drawing that I made to explain why metformin works. I'm gonna put this in like full screen if it allows me to put in full screen, and it doesn't. So basically, what this diagram is all about is it's the metabolic pathways that breaks down glucose or fatty acids, and that goes through glycolysis, the TCA cycle, and through the electron transport chain to create this molecule called ATP, which is the basis of energy in all of your cells in your body. So every time you want to replicate or transcribe DNA, or you want to create more cells, or your muscles have to flex, you're gonna use up ATP. So there's like 32 ATPs that are made from one molecule of glucose, and there's a whole bunch that are made from one molecule of fatty acid. So basically this entire pathway called beta oxidation is creates a lot of these acetyl-CoAs, coenzyme A, that goes through the citric acid cycle. But the more that you use it, the more that you create the ATP, and the more that you burn ATP, the more leftover ADP, which is diphosphates, that you have, which is not used for anything. This is why this is so big, is because this is the main enzyme that regulates cell growth, and the upstream enzyme that regulates cell growth and cell replication due to the stress of not having enough food. So basically it conserves cellular growth and replication to by basically starving the cell, which is a stress to the cell. So generally, when the animal kingdom, let's just say, is in a state of stress, it doesn't want to replicate. It just kind of conserves energy, and when there's an abundance of things, products or substrates, then basically they want to replicate, let's just say. So the thing is the thing that I was explaining about metformin, which is an anti-diabetic drug, is that it would increase insulin sensitivity, and we'll get to that, and it'll increase the when insulin works, it increases the upregulation of this glucose transport protein that will bring in glucose into the cell, and basically this is hepatocyte, and this is a hepatocyte membrane, and hepatocytes are liver cells, and so that glucose can go through gluconeogenesis, which eventually, if you don't use any glucose, it'll go into fat and into your adipose tissues, so your fat cells. And so basically you want to use as much glucose as you can, and also restrict the amount of glucose that you can, so that you create more ADP, which is a signal to activate AMP through the high concentration of ADP to low ATP level. So like less substrates to and less energy potential will activate your cellular stress response, which is AMPK, which stands for AMP activated protein kinase. So like AMP is just the monophosphate version of ADP or ATP. So like basically it's here, which is cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP is the most studied secondary messenger of any cell, and it actually at higher concentrations. That means the cell is so stressed out that it signals apoptosis, or the cell death. So basically, when you eat sugar, it goes through glycolysis, and basically you want to reduce the amount of glycolysis, and metformin blocks this mitochondrial complex 1 by attaching itself to the temporarily to inside the canal of this hydrogen pump, and hydrogen pump actually pumps just hydrogen inside the inner mitochondrial membrane. So you have the inner cytosol here and the outer cytosol here. So like it creates a concentration difference, and complex 3 also pumps hydrogen, and complex 4 also pumps hydrogen in, and the concentration difference will then activate ATP kinase to create ATP, and that is used by all the cells. So why is this important? It actually shows you the metabolism, basically in basic terms, the metabolism of the major energy sources, which is fatty acid. We're not going to talk about alcohol and glucose, and how it affects and how intermittent fasting, or fasting itself, affects and exercise and stress affects the regulation of the metabolism of the cell. So what you want to do is you want to decrease cellular growth and increase cellular health. So because if you grow, you will replicate, and when you replicate, then you can create when you replicate fast, then you will make errors in your DNA replication or transcription, and basically that can lead to cancers, and so basically when you are in a state of starvation, you will obviously activate AMPK, and AMPK does several things. It increases the sensitivity of insulin. Let me go through these things really quick. So glucose and glucose transport proteins are here, and then these are fatty acids. The fatty acid goes through a fatty acid receptor called CD36. Insulin receptor, insulin-like growth factor, which is hormone, and that all mimics insulin, and is a treatment course for people who can't react to insulin or cannot make insulin. Also, ADPO-Q, which is a hormone released by your fatty cells, and they activate the receptor ADPO-R, which takes calcium from your cells and activates another enzyme, and then that activates your AMPK. Leptin, which is like the hormone that is released by stretching your stomach, also activates the activates the AMPK, and I didn't actually write it down, but like the thing is it signals your hepatocytes to create more glucose glucose storage through gluconeogenesis, which creates glycogen. So it's a chain of glucose, and also reverses all these processes to create more fatty acid stores, and so on and so forth. And because it just signals to your brain and to your body to get ready, that you're not hungry anymore, so satiation. So it also induces goes to your brain and induces a stress response, and that activates this G protein coupled receptor that is coupled to cyclic AMP, adenosine monophosphate, and when ATP is used up, it creates this secondary messenger, and the concentration of the CMP ATP obviously activates AMPK. The green is activation, the red obviously is inhibition, and this chlorine receptor, chlorine transport protein is deactivated by AMPK because since you want to stop cellular growth, you don't want the chlorine to leave with the fluid, so you don't want the cell to shrink and shrivel and eventually create increased concentration and signal apoptosis. So what it does is basically these are mTOR proteins. mTOR is actually used are a series of proteins that regulate metabolism, and through like increasing GLUT4 levels, or I didn't actually write down what mTORC1 does, but like it increases the apoptosis response. So it also increases, like before, the chain of insulin's sensitivity by using less insulin to activate, and so you don't need to use the insulin-like growth factor, because a little bit amount of insulin will activate the GLUT4 chain. And then so basically when you fast, everything goes it goes backwards. So you don't have enough glucose, so all these are equilibrium reactions, and it through Le Chatelier's principle of balance, it goes backwards. Also, like by inhibiting G6Pase, it doesn't convert glucose to glucose 6 phosphate, so you have more glucose outside the cell, which doesn't matter because you're fasting anyways. You're not using glucose, and that allows fatty acids to come in and basically use fatty acids to create acetyl-CoA through beta oxidation, and acetyl-CoA will just power the cell as much as it can until also the fatty acids run out. And then like so when that happens, the NAD plus, which is nicotine, oh my god, I forgot what it's called, will activate SIRT3, which is a series of enzymes from SIRT1 to SIRT4, which is right here, but like I didn't go into detail with like the SIRTs because it had nothing to do with metformin, but they regulate the metabolism of the mitochondria, and so this SIRT3 activates FOXO3A, which deacetylates. So this is a acetyl group that has. So these are oxygen species that can bind to ROS, which is reactive oxidation species, which means that like you have an extra electron on oxygen, and that electron can bind to DNA and cause damage by uncoupling things, and basically this will bind to that oxidative species and the electron of the oxidative species, and deactivate it, so it can't bind anymore. And these are that's the basic concept of you eating a whole bunch of antioxidants, resveratrol being like one of the more potent ones. And so when you exercise, you use up energy that heavily decreases the amount of ATP and increases the concentration of ADP and ATP at the same time. You have to exercise about 30 minutes a day, because 30 minutes allows you to use up your free glucose storage, and then like basically after that you would use up your glycogen storage. And if you run fast, like harder or faster, then you like use up your glycogen storage from your liver. It actually uses you end up using your fatty acids and your triglycerides, which is fat that's stored in the adipose tissue. So basically, that usually happens after 45 minutes of running or walking or anything that requires you to constantly use energy. And obviously you can increase the ADP level by like restricting the amount of glucose, fatty acids, and like proteins that you eat. So that is the basis of fasting. And the thing is like if you and the stress response, Daniel likes to swim in the cold, and I am one of those that doesn't like to swim in cold weather, especially during the winter. And but cold actually, like if you put an ice pack in between your shoulder blades, close to your neck, it actually like induces a stress response that activates like the CAMP pathway, and that concentration of CAMP to ATP will also activate AMPK. And what AMPK actually also does is, like if you follow this pathway, these series of enzymes, they do a few things. They reduce the metabolism, obviously, of all these substrates, and it signals the destruction of damaged mitochondria. So like when mitochondria is damaged, and this is signaled through CAMP, calcium, and chloride, and a few other factors, and basically like it will eat itself and release a bunch of substrates that can be used later on. And it also preserves those substrates, and by because it's in a state of stress, so it wants to rebuild the amount of products that it can use, and also reduces the replication, so it conserves the cell. And by in combination of reducing oxidative stress, like it extends the health of the cell. And then like the these series of enzymes, so it blocks protein synthesis, so it doesn't use any of the substrates, and it also inhibits cellular growth, so that cells don't replicate or grow. So, and this is important because although it might sound like you're creating tumors, it actually conserves the telomerases, the signals for cell death, or aging. So that was my article that I submitted to Medscape, which is not going to get published, I think, on what metformin does and its effects on anti-aging. So increased cell health and increased cell longevity by just decreasing 1/3 of the energy expenditure. So metformin mimics basically fasting, and but you can also exercise fast and increase and take cold showers. So as a side note, like if you really want to stop all this energy production, you can use cyanide, which permanently blocks this electron transport chain. So you block the entire production of ATP, and that's why your muscles just stop working and you stop breathing. So check out Daniel and his videos in the description below. Thank you for listening.